According to the OC Register, the number of homeless people who have died in Orange County has been increasing since 2013, from 118 to 125 to 181 to over 200 last year. A recent survey shows that homelessness is the most important thing on the minds of Orange County voters, but paying for it is not. The Board of Supervisors has refused to fund their plan to end homelessness for 8 years to devote any county funds to it. The buck is always being passed. So what can be done at the state and federal level to solve this crisis? Thank you.
I'm going to start on this one just because we, both of us, are on what we call recess. And as a former teacher, okay, when I have 15 minutes of fun now. But my point is, we're back now in the district for about 3 to 4 weeks. And again, because I'm in a very swing seat, I'm not somebody who gets to jet off to other countries. And even if I could, I wouldn't, because being a public servant means exactly what it says to me, is to serve the community. So as I'm back, one of the number one things that we are doing is we are not only touring resource community centers, any individuals or organizations that are working with the homeless. Because as I was here locally, I worked with the Fullerton Collaborative, so I knew some of the partners. But in my district, which is now 400,000 people, I want to make sure I know what is out there. We held a roundtable with police chiefs. We met with the Orange County CEO, Frank Kim. We met with Sandra Hutchinson, the sheriff. And all of this to, in our own way, investigate, be detectives to find out what is happening. Just met with Eric Woolery, the auditor. And in fact, there is about $150 million in the Orange County budget that hasn't been spent through the county. A lot of this money is for mental health services. So some of the question is, could they actually use those dollars for either homeless homes, all of these type of things. And what you're actually saying is true. What can we do about it? One is we want to see the county use the money that they can to open up more beds for emergency services. Just this morning, driving down Harbor, right here in Fullerton by Costco, there was a man laying on the curb, right up at the curb. He had a wheelchair next to him. It was 7 in the morning, and I called 911. I mean, I absolutely cannot drive by and not do that. And I was glad to hear they said they'd be out there to check up on him right away. But the police officers and public safety can be very frustrated because they're the first responders. And yet it goes back to that question we said, which is, how do we solve this? There are major pieces of legislation coming through right now on housing bills through the state of California. When we get back from session, one of them is called SB2. And this is would be a housing fund to put into affordable housing for homeless. But guess what is attached to it? A fee, or if you want to call it a tax, it would be a $75 document fee to any mortgages, things like that. So right away, you start getting the lobbyists. I got called from, I believe, the county controller saying, please oppose this. This will hurt lower income families. The Orange County realtors are opposed. So these are the kind of scenarios. You have housing advocates who support it, but these are the type of scenarios we have, which is, how do you solve a crisis? So again, not a lack of will, but it's where are the dollars and cents? And even if you have them, we just opened the Kramer shelter in Anaheim. That took 4 years. It had come to Fullerton to be voted on about 3 years ago to be built here in Fullerton, and there were not 3 votes on the council to say yes. So then it was moved to Anaheim, and it took 4 years. So it's very complex, and but we're gonna keep trying to find ways to solve it.
And I'll just say really briefly, because my district, the majority of it is in Los Angeles County. I have one little city in Orange County. But I was visiting my cities and talking to my city mayors and managers, talking about what are some of the challenges, and every single city said homelessness was a big challenge. And it occurred to me that each city individually doesn't necessarily have the resources to try to get at the root of that problem. And so it only made sense that there be a regional solution where cities can pitch in and fund shelters or transitional housing that can also provide the wraparound services. So we got the county involved, we got all the cities involved, and they're working on a regional solution where all the cities will pitch in to help, but ultimately the county is going to be the sort of the structure by which they are able to make this homeless shelter and transitional housing center happen. And that's just by giving people in a room to talk to each other about how do we come up with a solution that serves all of our communities in a way that is cost effective. And Orange County, I know the local climate's tougher, but again, noise to elected officials to hold them accountable, making sure that people know that they're not spending funding that is potentially available to help try to solve that problem, highlighting that and making sure that you are asking the tough questions of your elected officials. Why are you not doing something about the homeless problem that impacts every city in this county? Those are the kinds of things that, that agitation that needs to happen in order to move the political will to reach solution.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Zahra. I'm a filmmaker and I'm a longtime resident of Fullerton. I know the arts may not seem as important an issue as some of the other pressing things like healthcare and housing, but it does create jobs. Jobs for people like me. I rely sometimes on grants to fund some of my projects that ultimately we pay people and we create local jobs sometimes. It also is part and parcel of our education system. So my question is, what is the status on the federal level for arts funding, and what can we do on the state level to counter some of the negativity that's coming from this administration? Thank you.
So I'm a huge supporter of the arts, and I think that they are absolutely critical for a well-rounded education and foundation in our society. They do create jobs. People don't think of artistic work as creating jobs, but it does. And at the federal level, the National Endowment for the Arts has obviously been under attack. They are talking about slashing funding there again. The National Endowment does provide grants for different kinds of artistic pieces, including, by the way, plays that are written by veterans to talk about veterans issues like PTSD and suicide, and plays that they can that they tour the country with to spread. I mean, art is not, sometimes it's just for the sake of art, but art can be extremely educational and in very moving way present topics for discussion for people. We try to fight against cuts to the National Endowment for the Arts, but again, that's one of those programs that is under attack in terms of the budget. I try to promote the arts in my district when I can. We have an annual art competition. All high school students can submit art pieces. We have a panel of judges who selects the winners in different categories, and the ultimate winner actually ends up getting to travel to Washington, D.C. Their art is displayed in the nation's capital for a year through a hallway that millions of visitors come through. And it's a way to express to young people that art is important, and that, yeah, you can make a living off of art, and that it's valued and it's valuable for society. Now, there have been some recent controversies over the type of art that has been selected from some of the districts, but it provokes discussion and thought, and I think it's important for political discourse as well. But it is something that is undervalued. People think of it as like an extra. I think it's a critical part of a well-rounded education, and will do my part to try to preserve and maintain that funding, so that we, don't lose our humanity, because art is also an expression of humanity.
Well, speaking of art, we're looking for artists right now in our office because we just moved our district office actually on La Palma and Knott, and that's right in the center of the 65th district, onto Gilbert West High School. And we are looking for artists to help us decorate it because it's an old principal and nurse office, and it's got the big brick cylinder kind of. So so if there's any artists, please go on to our website. There's some information. We're having a grand opening at the end of the month. We hope you'll join us. But again, as an educator for 30 years, I'm very old school, where I really believe kids need to be painting, doing bubbles, singing, performing, all of these kind of things. Again, old school, new school. We have strict education, of field trips, of all of these kind of things that we know that can really engage students. So related to art, one of our big efforts, I'm the jobs chair of the state of California, is to really reinvest with career tech ed. And that, again, you might not think of it as being art, but many kids thrive in the setting where they can make things, build things. So we need students who can do automotive with all our new technology, with the Tesla. We need people who can do culinary. We need tailors. All of these type of fixing, making that education shut down the wood shops, they shut down the metal shops, they shut down foods, if you can believe it, because now we're talking about robotics, but there's still the sensibility that we need people who can do trade work, iron work, carpentry. So I'm a big advocate of that, and again, as a society, we need to embrace those type of professions because they're good paying jobs and they allow people to use their hands.
This is primarily for Assembly member Quirk-Silva. My name is Emma Johnson. I'm an alternate on the Democratic Party of Orange County Central Committee. And this is more of just a legislative ask. Senator Tony Atkins is actually the author of both SB562 and SB2, which are now in the Assembly. And both of those bills, counter to arguments made by the other side, would save the state of California money. SB562 by the Perry and Stanford study will save us $37 billion per year, and SB2 saves us 79% and exempts commercial and residential real estate transactions. So please ask for your support on both of those pieces of legislation.
My name is Lopez. I live in the city of Anaheim right now. I used to live in Fullerton for 2 years. Then we moved to Bueana Park. Now we bought a home in the city of Anaheim. My question is, especially for Ms. Sánchez, what are you planning to do to stop the deportations?
I'm an immigrant.
I flee the Civil War. Now I see another epidemic. People fleeing El Salvador due to the Mara Salvatrucha and also the police. So what are you planning to do? We need something. We need to stop the deportations of people.
Immigration is a complex issue, and it's under this administration in a really bad term for the worse, because this president doesn't value immigrants. He demeans them, he stereotypes them, and he attacks them. He marries them, which is positive that immigrants will do work that no American. But immigration is a really serious problem because system is overburdened, it's out of date and out of touch. Instead of uniting families, it's dividing families. For the 15 years that I've been privileged to serve in Congress, I have stood up and fought for immigrants, for comprehensive immigration reform. We are a country of immigrants, and each successive wave has continued to give to this country and to make it even greater. And people forget that because it's easy to blame a group for their problems or to scapegoat a group for their problems. But there's a reason, I tell people this, there's a reason they call it an immigrant work ethic. Because immigrants who come to this country are self-starters. Failure for them is not an option. They have left everything that is familiar to them behind. They've left their family, they've left their country, they've left their language and their culture to come to a country where they hear there's opportunities, and they're not asking for handouts, they're just asking for a fair shot to make it and give their children a better life. My parents were immigrants to this country. I come from a family of 7 kids, all of whom went to college. My parents are the only parents in the history of the United States who can say that they sent not 1 daughter but 2 daughters to the United States Congress. Donald Trump to say that Mexican immigrants are just rapists, he's calling my parents that. I find that personally very offensive. We fight back as best we can, but again, we are not in the majority. We are not in a position to be able to pass comprehensive immigration reform because we can't schedule that for a floor vote. And trust me, there are enough Republicans that believe that we need comprehensive immigration reform, that we could get it passed if the leadership, the Republican leadership of the House, simply let it come to the floor for a vote. So we push back. I'm very concerned because this president, September 5th, will make a decision about whether to continue the DACA program, which has helped so many young, talented people who consider this their country, love this country, want to contribute to this country, want to work and pay taxes and succeed here and help others. And yet we have a president that attacks the immigrant community and blames it for problems. And I'm a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and we have introduced legislation. We are trying to get Republicans on board to help support all of these efforts, but it's difficult and it's extremely hard when, again, we don't have the numbers to make that happen.
And I will say, as California ends up leading many times in these, when the federal government has not been able to move forward, California has stepped in. And this is not just this year with the new administration. In 2012, one of the bills that was very controversial, but has made a big impact in safety on our roads, was a driver's license bill. And almost 1 million people have taken advantage of this, and through not only public safety with police officers, but also insurance has said that the traffic accidents are down, but there was a lot of controversy when I was there on the floor, and I supported that. We also, again, in Higher Ed Committee, have many proposals of legislations that have moved forward to continue to help support the students that are in college and are trying to make their way through. But again, you got to drill down, and there's some really alarming things that we are hearing in our community. This is an example. Many of our families are disenrolling from health insurance. They're disenrolling from lunch programs. They're not reporting crimes. They're, in essence, have been pushed into the shadows back as they were being victimized. There's all types of people out there. When there's an issue, there's always going to be people that circulate around saying, I can help you with immigration, pay me this amount. So being victimized over and over, but I know our office, other offices have worked or partnered with others on Know Your Rights, which tries to educate the community about what should or what can't happen. But you have to imagine yourself if somebody knocks on the door and says, looking for somebody. This is very intimidating. Sometimes they're asked questions, they answer them, And so we have a lot of work to do, but again, working in small groups, working in community forums, that they are willing to attend to at least help them understand what are some steps. But imagine in this climate having to literally look for a guardian for your children and find that now, hoping that the worst case scenario doesn't happen. But that is the climate we're living in right now.
And as a reminder, we have 25 minutes. We are ending at 9:20, so we're trying to get through as many questions as we can. So I saw 2 hands jump up earlier. One in the gray and one over here jumped up in the blue suit.
It's her.
The woman in the gray.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my question. My name is Jessica Rodriguez, and I'm a longtime resident of Bueana Park. I'm a public school teacher and a proud union member. My question has to do with agency fee and or fair share, and the very real possibility of the loss of it. What can we do at the state, or what can we do at the state and federal level to protect our union and not make California and other states strictly right to work or right to work?
Yeah, the people who talk about declining wages in this country and the gap that keeps increasing between those who have and those who don't. There are many reasons for that. Some of it is automation, some of it is globalization, and some, I believe, very fervently, is a lack of unionization. I come from the labor movement. I'm an IBW member, and so I support workers' rights to form associations and to advocate for better wages and better working conditions. Unions were what gave us the weekend. They were the impetus for getting child labor out of the workforce, for the 40-hour week. Many of the protections that all workers, whether you're unionized or not, enjoy is because unions fought and struggled for those rights for workers. And we've seen unions increasingly under attack, especially state by state, these so-called right-to-work laws. I call them right-to-work for less laws, which means you don't have to pay union dues in order to get the benefits of a union. And what happens when people don't have to pay for something? Most people don't, which means it weakens the power of that union, again, to stick up for their employees and to bargain for safe working conditions, better wages, and benefits. There are a number of legal challenges that are floating around out there, but the one thing that can help reverse that trend is organizing and talking about the benefits of union membership. If you think about it, businesses form associations to better advance their agenda, right? Chambers of commerce, right? Executive councils, business roundtables. They band together. They work together to try to advance what they want to see in their, in the policy at the federal, state, and local level. But many people, for some reason, have this misinformed view about what unions are and what unions can truly do. And let me tell you, union jobs support, or allow a person to be able to support themselves in a family. They are what built the middle class in America. And if we don't stand up and fight for those rights of workers to organize and to form those associations, when we are all living below the poverty level, we will only have ourselves to blame. So, organize.
My name is Sam Jammal, and I'm running to retire at Royce. I think we've heard a lot of questions and concerns today about what's going on in Washington and the direction of our government. And I think we're hungry for new leadership out here. And so November's a long time away, but I think there's a lot we can do before then. And so, given both of you have been fighters for these communities and fighters in terms of getting Democrats out and bringing independents and even bringing on some Republicans. Can you tell us a little bit about what we could be doing out here in the 39th district, all across the district, to get voters out for 2018? Thank you.